Hello, hello. Welcome to Your Home by Design, the podcast where we talk all about our homes and how they affect our health and well-being. Some episodes we delve deep into the research and some we just chat. I'm Nico, an interior designer and researcher passionate about bringing forward the findings so that you can improve your lifestyle and well-being. Grateful to have you. Let's do this. Welcome to another episode of Your Home by Design. I'm thrilled to have a very special guest with us today whose impact goes far beyond the digital landscape. You may already be familiar with her inspiring content on Instagram, where she has amassed a significant following. Joining us today is the incredible Natassia Valli. Natassia brings a unique perspective to our conversation, guiding people through the challenging terrain of grief with both experience and compassion, describing herself as an everyday gal with a deep desire for meaningful connection with self, soul, and body. She shares her grief journey on Instagram. That journey took an unexpected turn with the sudden loss of her husband and father to their two boys, propelling her into a solo parenting role and promoting a deep exploration of self. Today, we're delving into various aspects of Natassia's journey. What makes this conversation particularly interesting is the exploration of the role her home has played in her grieving process. In last week's episode, I touched on the research and some tips for designing a home for this purpose. But today, we have the privilege of gaining insights from someone who has lived through this experience. From spaces to grief, daily home routines to the profound impact of home, Natassia will share how her home has transformed and how she has reinvented it after such a life-altering event. We'll also explore how she creates a nurturing environment for herself and her boys. I'm genuinely excited about the depth and richness Natassia brings to today's discussion. Without further ado, let's welcome Natassia Valli. Natassia, thank you for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm super excited.
So I understand that this is your first time on a podcast.
It is, yes. So I'm excited but nervous. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And I think you said this is the first time you're interviewing somebody.
It is, yes. So this is great. This is both of our first time. So
we're going to tackle it together.
Yes, we are. Let's get into it. Can you take us back to around the time when you lost your husband and give us an idea of what home meant to you before he passed away and what home meant to you after? And did its meaning change for you?
Honestly, for me, I think looking back, home before he passed was the literal meaning. Like it was a roof over our heads, a place to reside, where we ate. It was a literal meaning of just having a house. In the transition of his loss, what I really realized is that now the meaning of home for me is really about safety, comfort, grounding. Grounding is a really big one for me. It's probably the place where I feel the most grounded when I am at home, or at least maybe I've created an environment that is grounding, not just for myself, but I believe for our boys as well. And it's actually transitioned to like almost an expression of myself. So that would be probably the biggest change, I would say, in terms of the meaning of home from how I viewed it before to how I view it now.
Yeah. I mean, research suggests that there is a profound connection between the spaces we live and grief. And so I can imagine when you're outside in the world living your day-to-day life and then you come home, that connection for you. And like you said, it's a place of comfort. It's a place of grounding now for you. Yeah, I can see how that really changed. What would you say the connection was for you?
That's really powerful that there's research that even connects the two together, because I would not have imagined that there was any any connection even between the two. But being the fact that I've lived it, and I can definitely see how there is such a powerful connection between the spaces that we reside and grief itself. And I would say, for me, the connection really was, it was the only place where I felt that I was in control and where I felt safe. Again, going back to like how I view home now. And when something this significant happens without much warning, and, there is this innate, there's this innate thing about you that wants to just make sure all your ducks are in a row, or like you don't want to know what's coming around the corner. And for me, being at home was the only time I felt like I really had control over something in my life, when my world had just completely gone into like this uncontrollable state.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. So that connection for you was really profound. And you noticed, that how connected we are during these times to the spaces that we live.
Yeah, it's almost to a degree, again, going back to the safety piece, like, nothing can really touch you in your home, or at least that's what was showing up for me. It was like everything that is going to happen to me is within the safety of my own home, and I can foresee it coming or not coming.
Wow. So when you were in the thick of grief, what did you feel when you walked in your door? That moment where, you leave the outside world and you walk through that door, like that physical threshold of coming home and closing that door behind you. Like, was there any significance there in sort of the thick of your grief? Because you were living your day-to-day life, you were grocery shopping, you were doing all of these things while you were going through the loss of your husband, and just coming home and walking over that threshold and closing the door. What did you feel when you walked in your door?
Like a sigh of relief walking through that threshold. It was, I think there was this level, especially the fact that I had my two boys, and having to help them and support them to continue forward while also supporting them and navigating the grief. There was a level of a mask that I had to wear, or I felt that I was wearing when I would exit out of the door. And that's something that I believe, when I walked back into my house, it was almost like I could just take that coat off and just submerge into what was happening in my life at that time. And it's a really, for me, it felt very vulnerable to show my grief outside of my house. And what's really interesting is now, as we're talking about this, even when I would see friends or family, the safest place that I felt to even share my grief was within my own home. That to me was like, yeah, it's just, again, I think the theme even showing up for me here is like just the safety around like the spaces that we live in. And for me, that is, things are showing up for me as we're discussing this. But if I was to go out for coffee with a friend or to go to their house, I still am now seeing that I kind of put that armor up when I would exit my house. But if they were to come into my space, it was like a level of freedom that this is my space and this is where I was holding my grief and felt the safest to express it.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, when we think about when we experience grief and when we're able to do that at home, it's an interesting thing to think that we actually might grieve better or go through it in different ways when we have that safety of home, when we're allowed to experience what we need to experience internally in an environment where we feel very comfortable in doing so. And back to your point at the beginning where you said it was like a space where you could see, like there was no, you didn't say this word, but like threat or danger in your own environment. And so because of that, it allowed you to kind of go deep, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, that what you're saying totally resonates with me in that sense, because it is a level of, like I had created that space and I had lived in that space in the thick of my grief. So of course, this is going to be the place that I feel where I can express it in the most safest way and the most vulnerable way. Right. Vulnerability comes up to me a lot when I think about, expressing grief. I mean, that's something that comes along with grief, and doing it within the space of your own home. It's a powerful thing for me. I think looking back that this has been the only place where I truly felt safe to really sit in it.
So one of the things, just sort of speaking about when we're in our environment, and it is our safety. It is kind of like the environment that you molded it already, right? You had your home, you created your home. And then to be able to grieve in your home just allowed that safety net, and that you could be vulnerable. And oftentimes when we're kind of in our space and we're able to be free in what we're doing and who we are, a big part of it can be like, how do we control that space? And sometimes that can come out as organizing. Often organizing gives us a sense of control, and as well as helps us process things. Was this the case for you? Did you organize? And how has that changed over time, if you did?
I mean, quite honestly, like that sense of control was a really heightened for me. It was really heightened. And it's funny because I don't necessarily have recollection of this, but I remember my sisters telling me that in the thick of it, and I'm talking like within the first likely 2 to 4 weeks of after his passing, where there would just be times, because I'll be honest with you, I was not able to stay in my space as much as it felt safe for me. I still needed a form of someone there with me. And so in those first 2 to 4 weeks, I recall my sister sharing with me a few months back where there was just a time where I would get up and I just would start organizing the fridge. She was like, you would literally pull everything out of the fridge and be like, I need to and just start wiping everything down, organizing the cans to the exact degree, what needs to go, what needs to stay. And it was just, now when I look back at it, and it's actually kind of carried over into now as well. And I've noticed that, it can show up in times of anxiety that comes up within me. It's the one time or the one thing that I'm like, okay, I actually have control over this. And again, going back to when something happens like this, kind of rocks your world. When you can take something that is so, like a physical thing and just move it around, there was something about that mind connection that was helping me feel like I had my stuff together, when everything else felt like it was crumbling around me. And it was like, if I can just make sure this is perfect, then, my world doesn't feel like it's crumbling.
In a way, like you said, where it's still something that shows up, it's like, we could almost look at our spaces and say, when our world is out of control and we start to do these sorts of things, it could almost be a bit of a signal for us to be like, wait a second, what might be going on inside right now that's kind of coming out in my physical, what I'm actually doing physically.
100%. Yes. Because now I look back and I notice myself when I'm the kids' toy room or something like that. And I'll be like, this just needs to be organized. Or there'll be a time where I have, as time has gone on, where I'll be like, I need to purge my closet. Exactly what you said. There's something that's showing up within me that is taking me to that level of wanting to have some form of control over something. That has allowed me to go into spaces of getting into stillness and wondering what's going on and getting curious with myself around that. So it is almost like a bit of a signal when we start to control the things or try and organize the things within our home, in terms of, okay, something is happening within me. And that's how I have started to perceive that when I do get into those states of wanting to organize my fridge or purge my closet or tell the kids we need to, which toys need to go, which toys are going to stay. There's something that is signaling me is showing up within myself that I'm not necessarily consciously addressing.
Right. And that's so interesting because in the context of like within your home, this is your space and you're able to do that. Like, your grief was the same wherever you were, right? Like it didn't start and stop in or out of your home. It was with you everywhere. But I find it interesting that, you're not going to sit there and reorganize somebody else's house, right? It really comes down to like where we are in our space. And for you, that level of, okay, yeah, that signal for you. And what can I control within my own environment? And then that cue to like go deep, which is really interesting.
100%. And I mean, I'm not going to complain about it because I end up having like an organized home at the end of the day. But yeah, it really is like it's an alert. It's a signal that something else deeper is going on, whether it be grief, whether it be something else. But that has really opened my eyes in terms of when that signal comes through to just get quiet with myself and figure out what's going on.
Amazing. And I think for anyone listening, that's a really important thing to mention because I'm sure there are people who are listening who might be going through grief or who have gone through grief. So to recognize that and to say, wait a second, like this might be pointing me to something that's stirring, and something that they might need to deal with. Or for people who are just navigating challenging things, to be able to say, okay, what's my response to my environment telling me? Grief comes in waves. When you experienced that sort of wave of grief, did you have any dedicated spaces to grieve? Like, did you prefer, going to a particular spot in your home to grieve? Like, maybe you wanted to curl up and disappear. So you needed, your bed and you needed the room to be dark, or, you wanted to grieve alone. So you went and had a shower, or like, just was there anywhere in your home, any space or any particular area where you found that you gravitated to when grief hit you?
Looking back, I would say like my couch, that living room space, it just felt open, and secluding myself into dark or the nighttime was really hard for me. So when night would come upon, I remember that I was just always waiting for morning, where I actually I've always enjoyed going to sleep. I've transitioned back now to enjoying curling up in bed at night. But I remember during those, really being in the thick of it, I just really wanted to be in like the open space of my living room, and having lights on was also a really interesting piece. The shower was really also healing for me. Being in the shower was really a space that I would say that I probably would release a lot of the pain that I was feeling. But yeah, being in my living room on my couch with a warm blanket. Again, going back to this theme of like comfort and safety, it was just kind of wrapping myself up in a warmth.
So just talking about comfort, often there's objects and there's things within our home that give us comfort. And I'm just wondering, like, was there anything that you left untouched? Something of his that you just left as is?
Yeah, that's a great question. There was like 2 or 3 beers left in the fridge of his, and they are still sitting there till this day, and I will not let anyone drink them. That's just, it's oddly enough, there's like a comfort in that. And so, yeah, I have that there. it's kind of tucked away in the back corner of like where the rest of my drinks are. But yeah, there's, I would say that's the thing that we've left untouched. And then there's photos, like we have photos in the house, and I mean, those never really like are going to go away. But in terms of like his stuff,
it's so interesting that, that for you is something that brings that comfort, right? And to each person that might be something else, but it's such a personal experience. It's such something that like touches you, and that meant so much to you. That's really interesting. I love that you have some.
It was like his favorite beer too. It wasn't just like, when you have like a whole bunch of different ones, it was like his favorite one. And I'm like, okay, this one's going to stay in here. So yeah. It's nice.
So, in design that's focused on healing, it's said that creating delight and elements of surprise can be used to help create positive distractions and to alleviate distress. So things like uplifting artwork or a colorful accent wall. I imagine as you were going through the pain of loss, you would have needed some sort of emotional and mental break from time to time. What are your thoughts on this? Like just in terms of your aesthetic experience? Was there anything there?
Yeah, that's like, I'm learning a lot from you around this, because I would have never thought that these two things would have been tied together. But, just speaking to you and having this discussion, and again, like I said, having lived it, I can see so much connection in those. I would say like definitely for me, from my experience, like bringing in warmer, airy type tones. Like if you can picture what I'm going towards, I don't want to say boho or bohemian type of thing, but just elements that made me feel grounded. And whether that be like more warmer tones, or earthier tones. And when I say earthier, like just some light browns and then some light grays, and those grays and those, lighter elements for me just felt a little bit more uplifting. Like it just almost uplifted things. And we had I wouldn't say we had a lot of dark colors before. But I don't want to make an overarching statement, but men tend to like darker colors and stuff. But for me, I just, in the transition, and I just felt like a more airy, uplifting, grounding space is what felt good for me. And what made me kind of feel less heavy. And it just created a more lighter energy within my space. So that's how I've kind of incorporated different aspects of that and accents in my home to create that environment.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say boho. And I know that, you touched on, just lightly said that, whether your space is like really committed fully to boho, I'm not sure, but let's say like for something like boho and even like that light and bright feeling, it is very tactile, right? Like white in color psychology is known to be very cleansing and very calming. And then things like browns and grays, they're very sort of grounding colors. So like color psychologists will often the color trend many years ago was gray, and it was chose partly because at that time in the world, there was a lot going on, and they chose a very grounding color for the color of the year. So it's interesting that you did gravitate and you do gravitate to those colors and that feel in your space. One of the things that, is really helpful to our brain is art and being able to really connect, obviously, with our environment. So for you, did you have any, or do you have any art? And if you don't, that's okay, because I'm always suggesting to people, like, make sure you make a point in looking at art and incorporating art into your environment. So, but just out of curiosity, I know for you, it was probably a lot of just being still and being in your space and allowing that very open and airy feel and very tactile and comforting feel. So that may have been all you needed at that time.
So that one's interesting for me to answer because looking at it, I don't have much art in my place. I have a lot of photos. I have a lot of decorative pieces. But in terms of art, I think I got to get on it, especially because of like the psychology that you're saying behind it. I mean, I've heard obviously that art is very therapeutic, but it's something that I definitely want to visit and, bring in those pieces into our home and start incorporating that. So, yeah.
So the significance of home and the belongings within the home, all of your objects and that significance, it's intertwined, right? And the way that we connect and form memories from certain objects is really personal. For you, what were the belongings and the objects that connected and provoked a memory, and how do you keep those memories alive with objects?
Yeah. I mean, we as humans, I feel like we have a lot of stuff, right? And so it took a while to obviously address a lot of those pieces like clothing and what we wanted to stay and be visible and a part of our environment as opposed to what needed to shift and be either boxed away or whatnot. I mean, he had great style. So I have like all that stuff nicely put away for the boys. But in terms of, things that we wanted to keep alive in our environment, we were both really big on books. So that bookshelf definitely sparks a lot of memory in terms of like when I'm going to choose my next book. I'll either see one that belonged to him or one that I was like, oh, I remember him talking about this one. And then there's other pieces like, medals and trophies that he had from when he played sports. And the boys and I think we went to HomeSense and got like this really beautiful memory box. And I think we have actually two now, where we've kind of separated, like, this is all of his, trophies, medals, things like that. And then there was a few pieces of like his wallet and just little things like that. So going back, there's times where I'll go in and I'll feel like I want to visit that memory box on my own. And then there's times where Kayam will want to do that on his own. And then, we will at times bring it out and all three of us will kind of look through things and look at pictures and laugh at little memories together. Or I'll tell them stories around, hey, this was the first kind of, he used to keep all of our movie stub tickets that we went to. So I'll tell them about, when we went to go see Love and Basketball, like so many years ago. And so, yeah, I mean, keeping those things alive is just keeping his memory alive and incorporating it into our environment.
So routines are something that they're a big part of our day-to-day living. When we're at home, there's certain routines that we have, and everybody's routines are different, but it's amazing how even if we don't set out to have a routine, we just have sort of ingrained routines that we do within the home. So yeah, rituals and routines are things that they really help us move through grief. And often these routines happen within the safety of the home. And I know that you journal. Is that something that has helped you with grief? And is there a place that you prefer to journal in your home? And when you do, how do you set it up? Like, is there some sort of like ritual there? Does the light have to be a certain way? Does there have to be scents? Does there share a bit of that sort of experience with us?
I mean, the journaling ritual and that routine that I created for myself, that all really came after, to be quite honest. It was taking myself out of autopilot, because I just felt like I was in autopilot from the minute that I would wake up to the end of the day. So creating those rituals within my own home really, again, brought me back to a sense of grounding and creating that within my own space was definitely around morning and night. So I do that right before I go to bed and right before I start my day. I wake up a little bit earlier than the boys. I do in the mornings like to keep it a little bit like, a little bit darker, but with, nice candles or like a little dim light. It's really, for me, creating those rituals was about getting the quiet. The quiet was really key in bringing that up for me. And so the journaling piece specifically, things are really quiet for me. Scents is another, like, I like incense. I like having like a nice little candle to be in that specific moment at that specific time. Even though you're in your environment and you are on some level conscious of your environment, it's about creating this safe little space within your entire environment that you're just going to kind of be present in that moment. Yeah.
So it's almost like you have designated that space as like, okay, I'm now journaling. This is what this space is going to be for me. Do you go into a separate room to do that? Or is that something that you do in like sort of multifunctional room?
So, the boys and I now live in a bit of a smaller space. So I've had to definitely have a certain room that is more multifunctional. What I have found, so it is in a multifunctional room that I do take this practice into. And what I have found that has really helped me is making sure that I have all the elements that I need right there and ready for me. So I'm not having my journal in my bedroom and my yoga mat over there and my candle over there. I have like a little basket with all of the things that I bring into that specific ritual right there and ready for me. And I've created it so it looks nice. But it's all right there for me to be able to just pull and have easy access to. And
so when you, if it's a multifunctional room, do you find that you have to, can you tune out the other sort of functions within the room? Or is it something that you have to like, let's say, I don't know, there's like a mess in the other room. And do you feel like you have to can you tune it out and then just get into it? Or do you find that you have to take care of it and then back to it?
For the most part, the boys are pretty great about picking up after themselves. I mean, that's not always the case. I'm not going to make it sound like it's always like that. So there have been times where I have had to adjust and shift and being like, yeah, this doesn't actually feel good today to do it here, and just navigate it into okay, maybe I'm not on my yoga mat this morning for my meditation and I'm doing the meditation on the couch and I can cozy up. So there are aspects of times where I have had to alter my specific location. But for the most part, a lot of it has to do with, what is in the environment, what's happening inside of me. And do I feel okay doing it here? Or hey, is it calling for me to sit on the couch at this point and doing that? So, I have my dedicated space, but I end up shifting and altering as I need to.
So looking back, do you have any advice for someone who's going through grief on what they could do within their home for support and well-being? So, we talked about room designations or, private spaces to colors or furnishings, something that you felt, and obviously it is personal for everybody, but things that really stuck out to you on your journey that were helpful or provided some comfort?
For me, I will definitely share what has worked for me and what eased some of the chaos. Honestly, this is interesting to say because I have 2 young boys, but creating more of a minimal environment was really supportive, I found, in the journey, and still in it, right? It is, and again, like I said, having 2 boys, they have a lot of toys, they have a lot of books, they have a lot of Lego. And so for me, it's about, okay, how can I adapt stuff within that is mine that I might need to peel back on? Do we really need this? And not only is that helping me in a mind perspective, because for me, like I said, the messiness and just having clutter everywhere, that stuff was adding to my grief, adding to my mental health. So I would advise, or that's feedback that I would give around anyone who might be going on a similar type of journey or kind of navigating something like this, is where can you pull back in terms of looking at your environment and not feeling chaotic about it.
Right. I think, there's that saying like, I need space to think, right? And it's almost like I need space to grieve, right? I don't want my home to be so cluttered that it just feels like it's just adding to that emotion. And the significance too, in your belongings, right? Like, so for you, maybe you were more intentional with what you chose to bring into your space. And I think that's an important thing, because to have intentional spaces where we're bringing objects in that really have meaning, and not overcrowding our rooms with things that really don't speak to us. So that's really interesting. So for you, having that minimal environment was probably really, really helpful, and such a good point for others listening as well.
Yeah. I can say that it's alleviated a lot of just the pressure that I also feel as like a solo mom now as well, around, not having to constantly pick up after things. And again, like you said so beautifully, like it's being intentional about what is in our space.
What are your biggest challenges with your home now as a single parent and a mom to two busy boys?
Oh my. Okay. So I would say routine. Like, routine is a big one. I mean, not having someone else to pick up the load in other areas, like, laundry. I remember there was a big, I would do the laundry. He would fold the laundry. I would load the dishwasher. He would unload the dishwasher. So carrying that, I mean, obviously now that my boys are getting a little bit older, they're starting to get incorporated into helping me with a lot of those pieces. But what I found was a really big challenge in what I'm navigating is actually creating and blocking out times. And I think you've actually talked about this in one of your episodes around like when you load the dishwasher. Or, just not kind of doing it on a chaotic time. So really almost like time blocking, or like scheduling the time of like, okay, this is my laundry day. These are the days I'm going to fold the laundry. This is the time that I run the dishwasher. That has been probably the biggest challenge, and just being able to shift that into creating more of a structure around it.
It's almost like letting you controlling the activity versus letting the activity control you.
Oh my gosh. Yes, you said it. Cause I felt like that. When you put it like that, I really felt like, oh my gosh, like this is calling me to like do it. The sink is filling up, and like the dishwasher's not empty yet. So definitely.
And that weighs on us, right? Is like, looking around in our environment and seeing things that, it's a task that needs to be done. And like, and like you said, not having that help, right? Somebody else to carry the load. Just to be able to say, you know what, this is this at this time of day, this or that doesn't work for me. So what does? And that's amazing that your boys help in that as well. So having gone through this, and obviously still going through this, and knowing intimately what you need from your home, if you could change or add one thing, what would that be?
Just one? No. So this is a really interesting question, because as the boys are growing up, I'm finding that calling for like a change to be in a bigger space. Right. They like to be outdoors a lot. We live in a condo. We live in a really nice space. I'm so grateful for it. And so I think if I could change one piece of that, it is to eventually navigate into a place that is, has a bit more of an outdoor space for them to be able to, go outside when they want to without me being like right behind them. And that's going to naturally happen as they grow up. But when I look at it right now in this moment, even though it's been slightly over 2 years, there is still this level of safety of being in in an apartment type environment that still brings me so much comfort. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. I think like I can imagine your life with your boys overlaps, right? And it's like if you were in a space that was really large, let's say, then you might not have the overlap as much. So that might change that experience in your home and especially still going through what you guys are going through.
Yeah, there's still such an importance of that closeness between us that is still very fresh, and I can feel it from them too. So I know where we are at right now. That's needed for them too. I can see it in our day to day, how being that close in proximity is really, it's really important to them right now. Yeah. And that's going to change over time as they get older. And so, it's keeping, I feel like each one of us, the three of us just need that closeness at this point. So, that's something that is still, as much as I'm like, oh, when are we going to have that backyard? This is really important for us right now to be where we're at, and it's nice.
So where do you think home will be in 5 years?
So funny enough, like I never thought that I would come back to where I'm living. I mean, I grew up here myself in the town that we live in, and so my intention would be to still be here. There's such, again, outside of my physical home and the walls of what is our home, our community that we live in provides that level of safety as well for me. I can't imagine if I was living, where we were living before and not having my parents down the street or not having some of, my sisters. And again, the community it also adds to that level of safety that the boys and I feel, more so I feel because I grew up in the same community, but, my intention is hopefully to be within the same area. But if there's one thing I've learned, like nothing in life is ever permanent and things are always shifting. So I go into that with an open mind. Yeah. And I think anything within the four walls of where you live, like you can create that as your home. So.
Okay. So I have one last question for you today. My last question is, well, home is such a significant part of our life. The impacts that it has on us and the tool that it can be for our everyday life, for our health, for our well-being, for grief, the good times and the bad. Do you have any advice or words for those who are going through grief in how they might be able to set up their home to help in that?
If there's one thing that I would say is create a space for yourself to be able to, whether it's escape, whether it's to feel, just create an intentional space for just you. And that can be, whether it is a nice little corner with a chair, whether it is, somewhere in your bedroom, whether it's your bathroom and your shower, just a place where you can feel anything that's showing up. Or if it's just like, I need to step away from this grief for a minute and just have a moment to myself and experience something else. But just creating an intentional space for you to be able to process without all of the other noise that's happening within the home.
Well, we've concluded the end of our show today. So I just wanted to thank you for being on the podcast and being my first guest.
Thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure to be here. And I learned a lot today from your research and all that. So it's been a great conversation. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for listening today. If you found this episode helpful, the best way to support the show is to follow along and share it with someone who'd love it too. And if you'd like to go a step further, you can become one of our Better Living backers. It's a small monthly contribution that helps keep the show going. And as a thank you, I'll send you a personal note along with a 15% discount for the Create Space course when it launches. You can find the support the show link right in the show notes. I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for creating space with me.